am super excited and honored to welcome everyone today to the Great Lakes Great Read first webinar for 2026. And I'm super excited to have a conversation with Pamela Cameron, the author of our children's book, our honored book for 2026, Sport. Ship Dog for the Great Lake of the Great Lakes. So my name is Anne Moser, and I am director of the Wisconsin Water Library at UW-Madison, and I'm also education coordinator for Wisconsin Sea Grant. In this capacity, I kind of intersect the two, and it's all about for my job, Great Lakes literacy, raising awareness and understanding about the issues and challenges facing the Great Lakes. So I'm very centered on education, and I'm very, very, very passionate about literature and books and the capacity of that to change people's thinking and understanding and making that connection through literature to the Great Lakes, especially with children, because those are the next generation of leaders that we're going to have. And I often think about this is that people won't really care about anything they know nothing about. And so using stories to raise awareness, I think is really powerful, especially with children. So Sea Grant and the library work for a program at UW that's all about facing these issues. And so I try to center education in that all the time, always kind of pushing that. And Super, super happy to be hosting this webinar. So Great Lakes Great Read is a one book, one community read. So these have been going on in the United States for a very long time, where people read the same book and have conversations and have programming. Well, our community is really, really big. It's the Great Lakes watershed. And we're trying to raise awareness and get people talking more about the Great Lakes. So that's why we're doing these webinars. And our hope of this is that you will take this webinar, this book, this information, and bring it back to your community, whether it's in a library or a school or wherever. And I think this year's three books are really, really fabulous choices to do that work. And I hope hear from Pamela a little bit about her work as a librarian and using this book with children, because I think she has some really great ideas. So just so you know, this is our first webinar, and our other two books, we have three honored books for 2026. The second book is a middle school reader. It's called Saving Our Sturgeon, Protecting Wisconsin's Ancient Fish, and it's written by Becky Wojan. And though it says Wisconsin in it, it's very much a universal story. So it's a story of the best, most interesting fish in the entire world that's been around since the dinosaurs. And it's about the ordinary people doing very extraordinary things to bring this population back. So it's another nonfiction title, and Becky does a really great job. So I hope you'll join us for the webinar. When I've heard her speak about this several times, and she does a fantastic job. So put that on your calendar for October. And then our adult honor title is about the Edmund Fitzgerald, written by John Bacon, The Gales of November, The Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I'm really excited. I haven't read it yet, but I do teach shipwrecks to children, and I'm looking forward to reading about his research and his point of view in telling the story. So three really good choices. And these webinars will be recorded and linked on the Great Lakes Great Read website. So Pamela, thank you, has been allowed us to record it, and we'll put that on the website for people if you want to show it to anybody, hear these remarks again. So please, I encourage you to do that. Quickly, just a couple of housekeeping. First of all, thank you to everyone involved in Great Lakes Great Read, especially the Library of the Great Lakes has done a lot of the marketing and getting materials ready. But there's a whole team of people that have been doing this. This is the second round of our program, and it's a big undertaking trying to get a whole basin engaged. So it takes a village to do Great Lakes literacy, in my mind. So on the Great Lakes Great Read website. There's a whole list of partners that have worked on it. I encourage you to check out their websites. There are so many people that I call Great Lakes champions across the basin doing really great work. And so there's some organizations to learn about, et cetera. So I encourage you to continue on your knowledge journey, if you will. And then this is a webinar, and I'm not a fan of webinars because I can't see you all. And we don't have chat if you're used to Zoom. So webinars have this Q&A feature. So I'm from the East Coast. I could talk a blue streak forever, but I'd much rather ask questions that you want to ask Pamela. Or even if you have comments or reflections that you want me to share with her, I really would love to hear from them. So just post those in the Q&A, and I'll make sure that Pamela hears them directly from you. Okay, so now the fun begins because first I'm going to welcome Pamela Cameron. She is the author of Sport, the Shipdog of the Great Lakes. I love this book, and I met Pamela in Zoom on Monday, and I felt like I had a kindred spirit because both of us are librarians and love books. And she has been a public and school librarian in both Wisconsin and Michigan, so deep Great Lakes roots. She currently lives in Kalamazoo. And one thing I really liked about your bio, Pamela, was when you talked that you love traveling, and I do too.
Hmm.
And you mention in here that you like to go to the history sites, not surprising. You like to go to the nature sites, not surprising. But you also say you love meeting people. And I feel like that comes through in this book, the stories of people. And we'll explore that a little bit more in our conversation. I do, before we move on and talk about the book, I do want to give a shout out to the illustrator of this story because Renee Groff, in my opinion, really brings this story to life through her beautiful,
Mhm.
very realistic illustrations. So,
Mhm.
Pamela, I hope we can talk a little bit about that
Yes.
as we chat. And you know, she's a UW-Madison grad. She
Hmm.
lives in Wisconsin. And you may recognize this art through her Kristen American Girl doll books, which she
Hmm.
did, which my daughter has, and
Yeah.
my 32-year-old daughter, her books and dolls
Right.
are in the basement.
Right.
But it's just I think she did a really beautiful job. So I think people want to hear about your partnership with her.
Okay.
But finally, the book, Sport is the story of this rascal. We're just going to call him that. He gets lost and rescued by some sailors on the Hyacinth.
Hmm.
And it's a tender ship. It tends the materials and goods and everything that the lighthouses need. Early part of the 1900s. So the sailors find the dog and rescue him. And he is like a typical rascally dog. He gets into some trouble, or I guess, or goes on adventures. And that's pretty common with dogs, even the most well-behaved dogs.
Hmm.
And then the other part that I loved, we had a dog when we were first married who was loved by everyone. And when I was reading, I couldn't stop thinking about Rudy because I took Rudy, he was like a celebrity. And when I was
Oh,
reading this, I was picturing Rudy in my mind.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just did a really brief introduction to you, Pam. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then also maybe talk a little bit about how you came to write this beautiful story.
Well, thanks, Anne, and thanks, Great Lakes Great Read organization. It's given me a very good feeling. But Sport was published about 6 years ago, and this has given me renewed interest and feeling good about that people enjoy sport.
Mhm.
How the story got going with me is that my husband and I were volunteer lighthouse keepers here in Michigan, and the
Hmm.
joke was we were not lighthouse groupies. There are many people that come to the lighthouses, whether it's East Coast, Midwest, and they know a lot about lighthouses. So I was reading library books, and in one book, Bruce Roberts, who has now passed away, he was a lighthouse writer. He must have just felt that he needed to put in a one page information about this dog Sport, who really was a real dog and lived on a hyacinth, the hyacinth as the flower, for 12 years, from 1914 to 1926.
Mm.
And I felt that book, that story was buried in this book, and I did not want it to be forgotten. So that's what
Mm.
started it all.
And so you just said, I'm going to write a book,
Right. Well, I thought I
right?
would try. I thought I would give it a try, sort of a retirement project.
Yeah.
And I ended up, of course, doing regular online research. But one fun thing was going to the National Archives because the log books that were kept on a quarter, they kept it quarterly, 4 books a year. Those weren't digitized. So
Mhm.
I knew a little bit about Sport before I went out there. And the best
Mhm.
thing I knew was that Captain Maynard of this lighthouse tender had written a letter to the lighthouse service. And I guess, I've got a scribbled up piece here. When Sport died in 1926, there's a couple columns here. Um, in July of 1926, Captain Maynard, he was happened to be in Manitowoc at that time, and he took the time to write a letter to the Lighthouse Service Bulletin about Sport. And I had been looking at the Lighthouse Service Bulletin, which is indexed, and all those articles are about new lighthouses and ships and coal and the whole manpower of the Lighthouse Service. And this story about Sport made that September 1st issue of 1926. So within 5 weeks of Sport dying, that was published in the Lighthouse Service Bulletin. And if I could read just a couple of
Sure.
sentences that
Yeah,
Captain
that'd be
Maynard, I
great.
would not have been able to write this book without Captain Maynard's writing this article. So it's the value of primary resources and
Mhm.
what Captain Maynard took. And this definitely made me want to write the story. Sport was just a dog, but he was always a good dog and a good shipmate, a friend to everybody and everybody's friend. I do not think he had an enemy anywhere, and he had more than friends, and perhaps I should say acquaintances. Sorry, I had scribbled over that a bit. So that was an indicator to me, not only that Captain Maynard had written this when Sport passed away near Ludington, Michigan, and then
Mhm.
Captain Maynard goes on to say that, yep, a day after Sport died, we buried him 2 miles off of Ludington, and I have photos of that from the Milwaukee Public Museum. Al Muchka was an employee there, and he was very helpful with the book too.
Mhm. So you had a hook, right? You got hooked on
Yes,
the
there was
story
just
immediately.
just enough
That's
to know
great.
that Sport was loved, and he needed to be remembered 100 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And, when I've worked with kids in the past, that hook is so, you need that hook, right? You need something that the kids
Right.
can really care about. And
Uh-huh.
I was all in for this dog right away, thinking about my own dog. And, maybe
Right.
kids reading the book will
I know that.
appreciate that. Will you talk a little bit more about your research? Because
Right, I will. And
I didn't know the story.
yeah,
That's
before I
interesting.
forget, and this is very important to me, and this is something I do with when I do talk to children. This is just connected with Captain Maynard's
Hmm.
primary resource. I just use this as a reminder to myself. So when I
Hmm.
work with students, whether it's usually in schools where we have more time or libraries, we have them write a letter to their elder, and we talk and any elder. So I don't say it has to be a grandparent, anyone of that they would like to communicate with. So that is part of my old fashionedness of letter writing, and then the
Hmm.
students get letters back. And that has been amazing how those elders have been, because then I hear back from parents that that elder was
Oh.
just thrilled to pieces to be asked questions about their childhood. So I just throwing that in now because I really value a primary resource because Captain Maynard's letter was a
That's
primary resource that drove this book. So
Yeah, I mean that's beautiful. And that is such a powerful message to
thanks.
kids.
I'm trying to do that with my 4 grandchildren, write letters.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the research process was helped a lot by photos, and this helped Renee a
Mhm.
lot too. Renee, then of course, I'd pass on all the photos that I came upon, from
Mm-hmm.
various sources, whether it was the Milwaukee Public Museum or Alpena,
Mm-hmm.
Thunder Bay Research Center. So here's one that definitely confirmed that sport was loved. And I often use photographs with students. We examine these
Mm-hmm.
black and white photos and what clues are in there to give us a sense of who sport was. And
Mm-hmm.
so there they took the time. The kids, of course, don't understand film that needs to be developed. So I try
Yeah.
not to film with that. But anyway, they took the time, and there's the wooden deck of the hyacinth.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did the kids ask why there was no color?
yeah, oh yeah, so, yeah, oh yes. And so really the research involved not only the lighthouse service, and I did not even know what a lighthouse tender, buoy tender was. I kind of knew, but now I know, it was supplies. They would bring the people, they would bring the payroll, they'd bring traveling libraries to whether an
Mm-hmm.
offshore lighthouse or one on shore. So it was so there was research on the lighthouse service. Then it was research also on the dog because I took these type of photos I had of sport, and I have a couple of them, to the UK United Kennel Club is right here in Kalamazoo. So they have dog historians, and so I was able to talk to those folks, and they felt he was a Newfoundland Retriever
Mm-hmm.
cross is how they.
Mm-hmm.
So because I had my dog books, I kept, what was he, a Leonberger? What kind of dog is he? And I loved that the dog person said, I wish we had dogs like that nowadays. So dogs, and then also passenger ships, which I'll talk to you about in a minute too. About
Yeah.
passenger, I also did a lot of research on passenger ships, which is part of sports story. So here's the hyacinth. This is
Okay.
what they look like, and they were unsung heroes. They were just like dirty old
Mm-hmm.
boats because they were hauling coal, fuel, all the tools, paint, everything that was needed for a lighthouse. And this ship its territory was all of Lake Michigan, all the way up to the Straits of Mackinac. And I think I could say I probably have been to about every lighthouse on the Wisconsin side and the Michigan side. So that's
Wow.
been the fun part. So finding out about those lighthouses and knowing that sport had his paws at all those places.
Yeah. Did you but do you have a dog? Is this part of
Oh,
your
right. We
life?
had beagles. And then part of the research was going to dog shows. Actually, a couple of times I went to dog trials that were just newfies. And that was really helpful to me because I could see them in action. In a minute, I might show you a photo or one of Renee's illustrations. And I took photos there, knowing, well, I can show you right now that newfies, yes, they're known for retrieving things, and he was part
Mhm.
retriever, but that they could jump from a boat. So of course, I could find that online, but to actually see it, here's a small little skiff or scow that they took out because they're working on a buoy, because that would be the buoy tending.
Yeah.
And then in the back, Renee creatively added a lighthouse, not just any lighthouse, that just happens to be Big Sable up in Ludington, Michigan. And
Mhm.
that's the area where is buried 2 miles off shore.
Oh, that's
So to actually
beautiful.
see that the dogs do that, and they're like, oh, 140, I think, to 160 pounds. It varies, female or male. So to see the dogs in action was part of my research. That was fun.
Yeah.
Trips.
So you, so did Renee also go because she had to draw
I'm
those
not sure if
and
she saw. I just that I was taking photos. I'm sure she looked online at dogs that were doing that type of work, retrieving.
because it's a very my friend had a Newfie and
Oh,
it's a very realistic photograph of the dog. It's,
right, yeah. Oh,
just
Renee
all
was
the
so accurate on
physical,
all her
yeah.
illustrations, and we
I'm
knew
sure she
that.
has her own.
And the book was published by the Wisconsin Historical Society Press. So we
Yeah.
knew we had to defend or be able to defend anything that was drawn or actually written. Everything I wrote was not fabricated. Like
Yeah.
so, yeah. Should I share a few more pictures?
Yeah, I
Are
think
you
it'll
getting
be
some questions? I
great.
can stop here
Yeah.
in a minute. Um, and one of the things Captain Maynard said, no, I'll put that. No boat could go ashore without sport. And then I also knew that Newfies have the ability to pull small boats. So
Hmm.
in the background there, you can see the hyacinth, and they've
Hmm.
come in with a small boat because this is Wisconsinite people, Wisconsin's folks will know this. This is Cana
Hmm.
Island, and it's
Yeah.
shallow there. I think if you've been there, sometimes
Yes,
you can
I've been
walk
there.
over
Yep.
there, take the tractor over. So Renee had found photographs of Cana from like 1920s, and so Renee would use that definitely
Hmm.
to be accurate for the air on
Hmm.
sport. So there he is pulling in. He pulled in the small helps pull in the small boat. That the text says that. But then more importantly, it shows how there's a family excited to
Hmm.
get their supplies.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
it begs the question to me then, in terms of these illustrations and the accuracy. I mean, clearly, if Renee's done all the work with American Girls,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
so when did you talk with her through like what you thought should be on pages, or how did
Oh,
that kind
this
of
is just wonderful. This
collaboration
is the beauty
happen?
of this is for me as a first time author, and even
Hmm.
though I'm in the library world, I understood that concept of author illustrator. If I'm
Hmm.
correct, and maybe it still happens, major publishers, it's in the contract. You do not communicate with if you're the
Oh.
author, you don't communicate with the illustrator. That's just part of it. And maybe it's still in place, but it definitely was not in place at the Wisconsin Historical Society Press. They had
Hmm.
identified Renee, of course, as a Wisconsin
Hmm.
illustrator. And
Yeah.
they had kind of been looking for a book for her, and they felt, yes, she could definitely do this well. And that's how
Oh.
it came about. So, yes. Then back to the communication. Yes, we did communicate. She would, from the very beginning, I don't know if I had the guts to send her my little sketches because I was sketching as I was writing. I'm a visual person. But then she would send me the thumbnails. She would send me
Hmm.
lots of the stages because she was looking again to confirm the historical accuracy, even though I'm not an
Hmm.
historian of maritime history, but I had done enough research that if I saw something,
Hmm.
I would notice it. So as an
Hmm.
example, so that was just beautiful. And Renee now I'm going to put in some more about Renee. Renee now has a studio down in Mineral Point. So if
Hmm.
anyone's down in Mineral Point, I'm not sure her studio hours. I haven't been there, but she is just a wonderful person, just a very giving
Hmm.
person, and she gave a lot to this book.
Oh, it's amazing. It's remarkable. It
Oh,
contributes to the beautiful, kind of get you engaged in that.
right.
Speaking of like lighthouses, and a couple of people, actually, it's kind of funny. Ellen and Mary both asked this.
Okay.
Ellen asked, which I'm kind of jealous of you, Ellen. Do you think sport ever got to the Rock Island light, the Potawatomi? My husband and I are going to be docents there for a week this summer. And Mary Colchin is also an educator in Wisconsin. She asks, did sport travel to Rock Island and Potawatomi Lighthouse? So it's kind of funny, the two of them asked that
Right. Okay.
question.
So the way to say it would be yes. And I can sell the book in a minute or two. I'm just being funny on that. Okay. Any lighthouse on Lake Michigan, and those would
Mhm.
be included. Yes. From
Mhm.
1914 to 1926, sport would have probably been on there. I don't think they kept him. Their home port was Milwaukee. I failed to say that. The ship
Mhm.
was in the winter was in Milwaukee. They would go back there when they weren't delivering. They'd kind of
Mhm.
crisscross the lakes around. Yes, sport. You can only imagine because I get the question from kids: how did sport go to the bathroom? I'm just
Of
I get
course.
such fun
It's a
questions from
very good question,
yeah.
though.
Actually, an adult asked that too. Um, Yes. So sport would have gone to any lighthouse that you know of
Mhm.
now, especially those that are opened. It's fun to think that.
Mhm.
I need to add that this is the selling part of the book. When I worked on the book, I thought if it ever gets published, it will benefit lighthouses in the Great Lakes, and it has
Mhm.
because that's why they have museum shops. That's why they have their gift shops because they have to continually upkeep the
Yeah.
lighthouses that they have. I'm involved with the Ludington area lighthouses, and it's
Mhm.
constant, constant.
Yeah.
So I feel good, and I'm always happy when people support any historical site, especially lighthouses. So
Well,
thank
and
you.
there is a
I don't know
very
where I was. Yeah, I like
There's a very passionate community of lighthouse lovers. They
there are.
really, and I think it gets to the history that it's a way to put your interest in the history on a bill, like, you learn about the lighthouse and then all the things that go
Hmm.
around that lighthouse kind of
Right.
draw
Yeah.
you in for sure.
Hmm.
And,
Right.
they're beautiful buildings usually.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the architecture in my travels have always kind of blown my mind.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
did I answer those questions? And I wanted to
Yeah.
share something else. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got more, more photos here. But before I forget, I
Yeah.
think anyone that has done research, you go where you think you're going, but then you go backwards and forwards and you go in a circle. Okay, so I went backwards. It just worked out that way. I just love going back, thinking about it. And I use this is I'm down in my son's bedroom here. But anyway, um, this is just to me is representative of a Menominee story that I came across, that how the Menominees, as they would come across in a canoe, birch bark, from they were coming from Green Bay area and they were coming to
Hmm.
Mackinac. That's, I know all those areas. And they would put an offering in the water for safe travels. So I
Hmm.
share that we talk about safety. This was the safety then. And now what's the safety now? We have automated lighthouses, or we had lighthouses that were
Yeah.
lit by coal. And so I like to go frontwards and backwards,
Hmm.
forward,
And
and that's history as a story. Yeah, that it continues on.
I appreciate you saying that because when I do shipwreck stories
Nice.
with children,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to remind them that the shipwreck history didn't just begin in the mid 1800s with
Mm-hmm.
colonization.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it started in time immemorial.
Right.
And then you can talk then about with children about how, there was different kinds of transportation back there,
Yeah.
different
Right.
vehicles. You
Yeah.
you just showed the canoe, there were
Uh-huh.
rafts. What were the
Hmm.
lengths of the voyages were different back then too.
Right. You
So
said
it's kind of
shipwreck.
an
Mm.
interesting kind of
Yeah.
thinking about history in a whole way, the
Right.
whole
Yes.
entire
Right.
history.
It's a
Um,
continuum, and it's a story and stories. There's so many stories.
we did,
Big stories.
Sea Grant did an educator workshop a number of years ago, and it was focused on traditional knowledge. And we were very honored to have some tribal educators aboard and an
Oh, I'm
elder
sure. Yes.
scientist. And that
Right.
that journey started with the tobacco blessing. And
Yes,
we
you're
were
exactly right. Yep, that's right.
yeah, we were
Tobacco blessing.
grateful.
Yep. I love
And
that.
actually on that trip, we were on Lake Superior and the waves were 20, 30 feet.
Oh my.
Huge. And we
Yes.
were safe,
Mhm.
so
Right.
we
Thanks. So you
think,
know a lot of thanks.
yeah.
It's like right. I never say that I'm an expert on it, but you
No.
want to touch on that continuum of
But
history.
it's also important to remember, like, this is a point in time of that transportation, but the history of transportation and of shipwrecks and
Hmm.
of boats go way
Hmm.
back.
Hmm.
Mary did chime in to say there is signage at Rock Island about the hyacinth bringing supplies.
Oh, there
So,
is, because
yeah,
that's the thing.
yeah,
Often when I'll go to a lighthouse, and I can think of several that at least acknowledge it. But
yeah,
yes, it's like they're there. They need to focus on the lighthouse. But how did the things get there? They'll talk
I
about
love
the
that.
Rocky
I
Life.
love
Thank you.
that.
So, which lighthouse was that again? It had
The Rock Island,
Rock
so
Island
toward
has
the
recognition. Okay, I have not been
yeah.
to Rock Island. Okay, thank you.
Oh, it's a
Good.
wonderful place. I wanted to share what
I'm
Suzanne
writing it
wrote,
down.
Pamela, because it goes back to one of the pages you just showed. She read the book aloud to a combination of first and second graders and to my grandsons aged 4, 8, and 10. They were
Hmm.
all very taken. This is going to give me goosebumps
Yeah.
with the pages showing the parts of the boat. I see you
Yes.
showing that pages now. Who decided to include those pages? Where was that decision made? The
Um,
students really loved it.
I know I've had other people tell me that, like after the fact, like a year later, after their grandchild has devoured that. Oh, and we also have
Hmm.
info boxes here too.
Hmm.
We couldn't. Oh, I should talk about that. She couldn't get all. Apologies to anyone that might be represented by a lighthouse, but we have some info boxes. But yes, I cannot remember. Just that I remember I was asked to knowing we could not identify all the parts, but what were some ones that stood out and were important to a lighthouse tender? Yeah, so that just shows kids have that mind. There's some the story would appeal to them, the dog aspect to, but yes, a part of the building of a ship and
Well, and I
Bigger
something
world.
else I want to compliment you on is when I do my shipwreck program, we go through a time machine and become the crew and everything. And
Oh,
I tell the
cool. I want to
children,
come.
I tell the children, I was like, sailing has its own vocabulary. Like
Yes.
they don't say yes sir, they say aye aye. They don't say stop, they say avast. They don't say water bottle, they say. So I love
For
that
you.
you included that because and also I did notice in your writing in the narrative you used all the words, the right words. Like I was like, oh, I love that. And it's
Right.
also it's all accurate, right? In terms
I
of
hope so. Yeah, because again, I
vocabulary
never,
and
never, yeah, felt I was an
and that's
expert on it.
something, you know, as
Yeah.
a teacher, as a librarian to emphasize, right? And you don't
Right.
make history up,
Yeah.
you use evidence like you were saying. So,
Uh-huh.
very cool. Thanks for
Cool.
that comment, Suzanne.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, I can make a
beautiful.
note.
It's a beautiful thought.
Thanks.
So you talked a little bit about um, some of the other questions. I guess this do you find writing easy? Is it a hard thing for you to do? I can hear your excitement about research and, you know,
Yes.
all
Yeah.
that stuff. Did you
Right.
find writing it hard?
That is hard. It's hard. I'm more of an outdoor person, so to
Mhm.
sit for a long time, but it definitely did harken me back to high school English and the struggle because I know I'm not a natural writer. So that was okay. And that now is a fun way when kids ask questions. And you can definitely know what that's behind their questions of is they sense that as an author, I found it easy. So it's easy for me to say, oh, and I had to edit myself, you peer edit? Does your teacher ask you to edit? So I feel like I'm right with a third grader, having to edit writing. And then I think I even say like, and this, I believe it's true, all the authors we all know today, probably even the classical authors, you have to self-edit or someone edits for you. I think we know that all the credit that's given to editors and the editors, yeah, are very helpful.
I agree. I agree. You know, I'm just going to kind of go on a side tangent for a moment because I
Sure.
forgot to ask this in the beginning. I run a couple book clubs and one of them for kids about kids literature. And I always ask
Cool.
our honor guests, they're usually they're adults and sometimes there's authors, but do you have a favorite book from when you were a kid?
Oh,
Just in general. I
right.
love to hear what people
I'm
say.
glad you mentioned this like Monday so I could think about it. And I'm going to say something that came to my mind. Oh, and actually I have it here. I am of an age. I thought I had it here. No. Sorry, I'm looking around because I wanted to remind everybody if they knew Lois Lensky. And she
Hmm.
wrote regional books, probably in the 40s and the 50s. And so I'm of a certain age that I read Lois Lensky. And what I have now, I have there was a riverboat one. I grew up in Iowa on the Mississippi, so I remember reading Lois Lensky like a riverboat story. And right now I have one that's based in the Revolutionary War time about a girl out in Boston, and she's involved with the shipping on the East Coast, Lois Lensky.
Mhm.
And then I will admit this also, Nancy Drew. And it's not, we know they were, Lois Lensky probably a little higher quality, but what Nancy Drew was about, and I would probably be, if I looked at one, I go, whoa, I was reading this in fifth grade. Um, it was about your area. That's what Nancy
Mhm.
was doing. And she was figuring things out. And I realized that's what I am, whether I'm outside a lot or I'm interacting or trying to solve something, maybe mechanical, because I like to
Mhm.
do hands-on things. And that's
Mhm.
what Nancy Drew is about. She was fearless, I think.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's modeling that books that model that kids can go out and do things. That's what
Mhm.
I like. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you
So
read a lot of history when you were young? I mean, I
I
hear
don't
your
think, I mean,
excitement
when
about
you
it.
think how things have changed, there's so much out there. I don't remember that. I do remember my parents taking us to historical sites. And that is a big thing for me too, that as a
Mhm.
teacher, I could always tell when kids had gone to historical sites, and boy, could they add to the conversation.
Yeah.
So
It's
that their knowledge of the world or even their local area. And that to me is important. The
Mhm.
book to me is about sense of place, that
Mhm.
children need to have a sense of place, even if it's just their town.
Mhm. I we know with our work at the university the importance of place-based education, and I think
Yes. Oh, I wish I
we
was.
probably get a lot of people to agree with you. And I personally know no better place to do that than the Great Lakes because
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you're
it's just a
doing so
jewel.
much with children yourself. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of, as I said before, a lot of people around the watershed, all these champions, the list
Mhm.
is so long.
It is. Yeah.
Um,
It's a special place, and you realize that when you talk to folks that come from other areas
mhm.
of the
You have
Great Lakes.
another compliment from Nicole. I am a
Okay.
third grade teacher in Wind Point, Wisconsin. I think that's sort of in the southeast corner. You can correct me if I'm wrong,
Oh,
Nicole.
right. I've
But
been to Wind Point Light. Yeah. Renee and I went to Wind
oh,
Point Light. Yes, we went
oh,
there. Not sure why
wonderful.
we did not do a program that there. We did programs in Milwaukee. Not sure
Hmm.
why we drove down there.
And she says, we love your book. We use it
Oh,
during our
great.
Lighthouse and Great Lakes unit. So there's a
That's
wonderful
great. Yep.
compliment.
Yep. As I worked, yeah, as I worked on the book, I thought about curriculums. Yep. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Um,
That's just been the best part of it.
so you worked as a librarian, probably did a lot of kid work over your life.
Uh-huh.
So can you think of some ways we have librarians and teachers, the people that I recognize on our attendance list are teachers, librarians working with the kids.
Mhm.
Can you talk about a little bit about some of the favorite ways that you have used this book with learners or would suggest we work and maybe Nicole, if you want to chime in how you use it in your classroom, that would be welcome
I
too.
would love to hear that. That is, to me, is exciting how folks have taken the book and made
Mm-hmm.
it much more than it is. Yes. Yes. Is she perhaps going to add some things or?
We'll see what she
Yeah.
says.
Okay.
We just wait.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit. Have you
All
done?
right. I'm trying to think. One thing that this pushed me into the science aspect of it. Because of the ships being out there and needing to
Mhm.
know the depth of the water, I do water soundings with like containers of water and having kids measure water. And that involved some looking at some of the maps of the floor of Lake Michigan. So, really, again, I'm not an expert on science, but I wanted to bring that part into the story. That why were the ships why were the ships a danger? Because the bottom of Lake Michigan is uneven.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine a child or even any of us would not know what are the depths or the like depth of
Yeah.
Lake Michigan. Fun thing,
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this out. This is just a fun thing about Lake Michigan that um, it's the shape of a bathtub, and that causes the waves because there's nowhere for the water to go. So I had to read that
Mhm.
somewhere, right? It's very, it's physics. It's the physics of water, the little I know about water and things. So that was a fun thing to think about.
Yeah.
Also, a quote that uh, years ago, mariners would come from the ocean, having had an ocean experience, and they'd go, "Oh, these are just big puddles." I
Mhm.
remember
Yeah,
that quote. I was like,
exactly.
and they'd get here and they go, "Oh no."
Exactly.
Storms
Um,
storms are pretty severe on the lakes. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why there's shipwrecks on the other end of your
Mm-hmm.
story.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I ask kids this and they're like, "Hmm, what?" Do you have a favorite place on the lake, Lake Michigan or anywhere around the Great
Yeah,
Lakes?
I
Kind of a
like just about
favorite?
everything. Lake Superior is pretty cool. If you look,
Mm.
Chris Point is up on Superior, and that's I think we've been there 3 times as
Mm-hmm.
keepers, and that's 18 miles in,
Mm-hmm.
and that's that is a very beautiful place, very remote. So I like Lake Superior, but I like the difference between the Wisconsin side of Michigan, of Lake Michigan, and
Mm-hmm.
then the Michigan side. Of course, we have more sand over here, so I like Sleeping Bear.
Mm-hmm.
We go up to Sleeping Bear Dunes Lake Shore, and that's a good camping spot there.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. So Nicole did share. Thank you, Nicole.
I love it.
She says, we do a whole unit learning about lighthouses on the Great Lakes. Each
Great.
student picks a different lighthouse on the lakes and researches it, writes a
Mhm.
paragraph, and
Yep.
recreates the lighthouse in art with recycled materials. We
Okay.
love using your books to learn more about the ships, the people who impacted lighthouses, And especially if we think sport had visited the lighthouse they chose to research. Oh, I love that. That
Right.
is
Thank you,
so
Nicole. And you're at
wonderful.
Win. You're near
Wi-
Racine. Racine. You're near
Wind, Wind, Wind Point, Wisconsin.
Wind
That's
Point.
that's wonderful.
Is that
She
near the
also,
lighthouse? Did she acknowledge that, or was that just me thinking it was?
yeah,
What?
the Prairie
Wind Point?
School. So it's kind of
Yeah.
south of the Prairie
Milwaukee.
School. It's south of Milwaukee,
South
so
of
kind of near
Milwaukee.
Racine, kind of in that area.
Prairie School. Is
Yeah.
that in the Frank Lloyd Wright building, school?
No, I don't think
Because
so.
Renee and I went to a school south of Milwaukee, and it was
Hmm.
It was a Wright design school, and we did a
Oh,
program there
yeah.
in 2019, a while ago.
Um,
Thank you, Nicole. That's what I want.
yeah, it's
That's
wonderful to
good.
read about that. So I'm trying to think if there was any more questions from the community that we have. Um, Suzanne adds, Pamela, if you haven't read it, I think you'd really enjoy the book Keep the Lights Burning, Abbey.
Well,
Some of your other favorite lighthouse books? Perhaps maybe
oh,
some you might have used in your research too.
yeah. Well, funny thing on that, I lived in Appleton for 20 years and I knew Connie and Peter Roop who wrote that book. And they'd go out to Maine, right? That's probably in the book. Yeah. And that's just been a perennial. That was one of the first, to me, lighthouse children's books.
Oh, I
So
love
Connie and
that.
Peter live in Appleton, Wisconsin. I missed the person's name, but yes, isn't that a
Mm,
wonderful book? And
yeah.
I haven't seen them in decades. I guess I moved away from about
Oh, that's
2000 from
wonderful.
Appleton, but I should check in. I know she's a member, I think it of I can't remember of a group we were in. Yeah. Oh, very fun. Yeah. So anyway, I've got stacks of books. This gets into the science because I push myself into science. Louis Fresnel. If you have an interest in what's the
Whoa.
lighting of, that's just a whole science. Louis Fresnel was French. He worked on the roads in France, and
Mm-hmm.
this is just a very readable book. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a short bright flash. Augustin Fresnel. And there's an actor out of New York, if anyone has a New York City, New York area, and he recreates Louis Fresnel. And I've heard him two times. And you're in a room with a bunch of lighthouse people, and people are crying. You're crying when you get done because he passed
Oh.
away at a younger age. I think, he had some type of
Mm-hmm.
chronic disease. So I think he died in his 30s. But his Fresnel lenses, of course, were in France
Mm-hmm.
before they came here. And in the United States, there we had a superintendent of the lighthouses, and he was like, "Oh no, we do not need those." Well, we did need them because they were the best. So when you
Mm-hmm.
hear his Louis Fresnel story, that's great.
A
And then
short bright
a lot of
flash.
there's so many. Yeah, there are a lot of lighthouse books that I have read. Yeah.
Um,
Anne, may I share this photo? This is fun. Of
yes,
course,
of
I would have loved
course.
to have this photo in the book, but I will show the scene. I have two photos like this. Do we have a minute?
Of
Look
course.
carefully.
Yeah, we do. We have a little more
There's
time.
sport.
I love
H
that.
H on. This is the crew of the Hyacinth. I don't have this was on. No, this might have been 20 or 1917, I think. So baseball's coming in to be America's pastime. This is the crew, part of the crew. The crew could be up to 25. Captain Maynard and his wife did not have children. Otherwise, I'd be, yeah. And thank you, Anne, for showing that.
Mm.
That's why
I
the
could turn
baseball
off my
scene.
background
Yeah,
for
and
a
I could,
minute.
yeah, the baseball scene is in there. So as they would dock at night and perhaps in Milwaukee. Yep. Yep. You've got that back all this.
I'll turn off my background so you
Yeah. Okay.
can.
Turn off your background. Okay. Or do you want, yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
There is
So that was
the
a way for me to get the
dogs.
kids in the story. Yep. And then I just have them chanting. So that's a way to take kids back to see the connection if they've gone to a
Mhm.
baseball game. So that's part of this, that dialogue of for kids to
Mhm.
see the connection between their lives and 100 years ago, which they may not
Yeah,
think there's a connection.
right. Good point.
Okay, can I come back to Renee? Is that okay? Do you have a
Yes,
minute?
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Renee's art. Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful. The faces.
Sport was lost in Chicago. Captain Maynard
Mhm.
wrote about it. They were a sorry lot. They were a sorry lot when they
Mhm.
left Chicago without sport. And then within a couple of days, the SS Indiana I got into passenger ship. Here's the SS Indiana.
Mm,
There were many of these passenger ships on Lake Michigan, books written about those. And so
mhm.
that's how sport got from Chicago back up to Milwaukee. It was on the SS Indiana. That's all Captain Maynard said. So well, that was a perfect way to get kids into the book. You know, kids are at the lighthouse,
Yeah.
but when
Oh,
Renee
it's
sent
beautiful.
this sketch to begin with, it was just like, yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't she great?
I wanted to, Lena asks, during your research, did you come across any other stories of famous dogs on the Great Lakes?
I tried, and if anyone has any ideas, boy, and not getting to know you, and since Monday, it's like send me some ideas. I did look around for some. No more on sports. Captain Maynard actually said, well, there were many things to tell about sport, but this article he wrote, but
Hmm.
I don't have enough time. You know, he only wrote about being lost in Chicago. Thank goodness he did. But what one that the ship and again, Anne, you need to communicate with me, and if I get some more energy here. A shipwreck on Superior, because I the shipwreck museum in Paradise in the UP is a very wonderful place to go if you ever get to the
Hmm.
UP, anyone. And so Bruce Lynn is the director there, and I thought, well, he might have some ideas. And he didn't really, you know, he's probably on different wavelengths, or they do a lot of finding of shipwrecks on
Hmm.
off of that
Hmm.
area. That's right where the Fitzgerald went down.
Hmm.
Um, one story I came across, shipwreck. The only survivor was the dog of the captain. So
Oh, wow.
that dog got from the UP back down to Detroit to the captain's family. And yeah,
Oh.
I didn't take me long to say, no, I can't do that. It's not that I don't want to scare kids. I had to have a feeling. I have to have a feeling for it, just like for sport.
Hmm.
I had to have a feeling
Hmm.
for it. So,
That's
I,
a sad story,
yeah,
though,
I know.
too. Oh, the
Yeah,
dog.
yeah.
The Ellen asks, and I think you just sort of started to talk about this, but are you thinking of another book or are
Well,
you?
I've gotten involved with some other things,
Mhm.
just a variety of things. And actually, that first year I went 7,000 miles
Mhm.
from up in Minnesota to Michigan. You know, that it's
Mhm.
hard to believe that it's not that far. But I was here, there,
Mhm.
and everywhere, and then it kept going different places. In July, so anyway, I kind of got pulled from sitting myself down, my own fault. But
Mhm.
I do other things.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but I still do a little like in July on July 10th, I'll be at in Sheboygan at the Storybook Garden there
Mhm.
for a program. So I still do programs. I still like to see people,
Mhm.
even though I thought maybe sport was on the downside. And I'm still have a really good feeling about how if the book is sold, it's helping
Mhm.
Lighthouse. So I continue. I
Yeah.
do that on the backside. My joke is I'm the sales rep in Michigan for the book.
I love it.
It's not
I
to make
this
any
is
money. It's so kids,
there you go.
families will see them. Yeah. And I will add this too. This is didn't think this would happen, even though I'm a grandparent. The number of grandparents that buy the book, and I'm sitting there signing the book for that
Mhm.
grandchild. The grandchild's in Europe. The grandchild's anywhere in the United States. The grandchild could be anywhere because they want their grandchildren to know the history of the Great Lakes. That is just
Oh.
fun.
That
And
makes me
then,
get goosebumps,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Passing down that generational story.
So that is really, and that makes sense to me. I'm making a joke
Yeah.
here too. A grandparent like me, I go to a gift shop. You want to support the gift shop.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe you don't need a sweatshirt or a t-shirt, but boy,
Yeah.
you need a book. You need a book for your grandchild. So that
There you go.
unexpected, but it makes me happy that.
That's, yeah, and just, yeah, the thought of gifting it is a beautiful idea.
Mhm.
Susie asked one question that I think is kind of an interesting question, and she asks, how do you organize all your research? And did your research lead to other like side trails or more ideas, or did something come into the book because of that research that maybe you weren't expecting?
Well, I basically, I needed to follow that letter, the Captain Maynard.
Hmm.
Um, wrote, whether it's the baseball, the parts of the ship, I just knew I needed to talk about the passenger ship.
Hmm.
Given you have that 28 pages or 32 pages for a
Hmm.
picture book, you really have to, if anything, cut things out.
Yeah.
So, if anything, I have lots more information, and that means I've gone to historical societies,
Hmm.
Michigan. I present at memory care centers.
Mm.
I can do this for about anybody. And then I'm part of my talking with adults is if you have a story, a family story, or a story from your locality, if I can do it as a newbie to the lighthouse world,
Hmm.
anyone can do it. It's that research. Yeah, the research takes you places. But yes, I'm sorry to say I didn't branch out
But
to
nothing
do that.
surprised as you were doing the research, did you find something you're like, oh, I didn't know that, but I got to put it in there? Or did
Um,
you kind of already have a kind of a preconceived narrative
yeah,
arc
that
when you
that
wrote the
sports
book?
life. Of course, I based that on, and
Hmm.
kids we talk about your life as a biography, or
Hmm.
our lives are a biography if they're reading biographies. And then the book is modeled after a biography of a person from
Yeah.
Sport being rescued as a pup to when he passed away.
Yeah. That's
So
a
yeah.
that's a story you could share with the kids too. Like this is a biography of this
Of a
dog.
dog, yeah. So
You
that
know.
as they're learning biographies in third and fourth grade, that's a fun way.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that. That's really wonderful.
So it's
So we're nearing the end. So I want to ask if anybody in the room would like to post any last questions or comments. I'm happy to share those. But I did want to ask you one more question, I guess.
sure.
What do you hope your readers leave after reading the book? What kind of ideas or what do you want them to leave with? Did you have
Right.
something in mind when you wrote it?
Because I didn't say that. Yes, I wrote it for the youth of the Great Lakes area because I knew as I talked to lighthouse people that there was a lack of true stories about the Great Lakes. So that's why I did write it. But so what I think I would like, um, what I hope is that the readers, whether it's a youth or even an adult, see
Mhm.
that they are part of that history. Somehow there's something in their lives, whether they own a dog, whether they've been to that lighthouse, and how their lives go into the
Mhm.
story.
Mhm.
That the stories, and that's the way it should be for any book we read, whether it's
Mhm.
nonfiction or fiction, any genre of reading, that somehow your life becomes has a part of that story.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that I is that I don't know. It's kind of general to say. It's not
Actually,
everybody, anyone that's a reader knows that feeling
it's
that
beautiful.
you connect with you can connect with a nonfiction story. In some ways, this is a nonfiction book too.
Yeah, I I think that's beautiful. Like actually that's gorgeous. You know, we're all part of history. Like
Mhm.
that's a beautiful outcome of this, right?
Right?
Like
Yeah, that your history is not separate from us. It's
no,
part of
no.
it.
And
And
that's a good educate. I'll just put a pin in the education part of that because having grown up 60s and 70s Catholic school education, I don't think I learned any history, honestly. I learned, just a little fraction of some dates, and that was it. And now as a
right, yeah, that's a
now,
joke with my high school friends. We can remember our 10th or 11th grade history teacher, and it was all facts and figures. We joke
yeah,
about
and
it
it
50 years
wasn't as
later.
if it was, yeah, it wasn't as if it was a real
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I think that's really an interesting.
Yeah, it's story, and maybe it's just taken education to catch up with that. But I'm
Yeah.
guessing educators. Now it's obvious from the remarks. Yeah, we know that educators of
Yes.
today are
Yeah.
have made it a story and have made it part of their students' lives.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't have any other questions. I really want to thank you, Pamela. This was just delightful to hear about your process and about about the story itself and what you hope your readers like. It's just really profound. And when I talk about these champions around the Great Lakes of people doing
Mhm.
work, writers are right in there. librarians and educators who take that book and bring it to their readers and their children and their learners and their patrons. Yeah, it gives me a lot of hope. It really does. So I
Sure.
just want to thank you, and I do want to thank everyone who joined us. And
Thanks.
we'll put this recording online. Thank you, Pamela, for allowing that. And if anybody is on the webinar and would like, Pam is offering her presence in your space. So if you want to reach out on the Great Lakes Great Read website, on her page has her
Oh,
email, and she
mhm.
said she'd talk with you if you want to like kind of reach out and see if she want
Right.
you
I do
can
visits. Yeah, our
somehow
son
work it
lives
out.
in Appleton. I'm not sure where all your visitors are from, but yeah, I travel around a lot, quite a bit still. And
Yeah, so
thank
the
you.
offer is there if you'd like her to visit your classroom or wherever. So it sounds like she's game. So thank you,
I appreciate, thank
Pamela,
you to the
and
listeners
yeah,
today. I appreciate everyone taking time tonight to learn
yeah,
more about sport and Great Lakes, Great Read too. Inger
yeah,
and all the organizers of it. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to say
Awesome.
good night and we'll see you next time. See you in, I guess, October. So take care, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.